I'm Richard Burton from the Richard Burton Arts Centre here at Bempton near the Yorkshire coast. Of course, Bempton Cliffs is a really famous thing round here, and of course at Bempton Cliffs we have puffins. They're the most famous bird we have, and today we're going to spend a little bit of time moving on from our landscape paintings to have a go at some wildlife. And of course, nothing better than to have a go at a puffin on the Yorkshire coast here. So we're going to have a painting of a puffin, and I want to take you through the stages, take you through the steps. It's going to be a time-lapse video. This is obviously taking a little bit longer than the previous video, so the time-lapse is going to be probably a little bit quicker in parts, but you'll get a feel for how I've approached the painting, how I've approached all the moisture, and hopefully we've got that little bit of detail which makes the whole thing come together. So now, without further ado, let's get straight into the painting. Okay, so we've completed the drawing. That's all in place, essentially concentrating on the head of the bird, making sure that you get the structure right, because no matter how much painting you put in, if you don't get the structure right of the bird, it will look odd. So I need to get the proportions right. So I've sort of worked those. I've then put the feet, and obviously you can see it's just sitting on the edge of the cliff, but a lot of the grass is in diffusion, and that sort of we're going to work into that. So what we're going to do now, first off, is to mix the colours for the background and concentrate on the background. So with the background, what we need to do is ensure that we wet the paper first, ensure it's thoroughly wet, it's got a good level of moisture in there, because we're going to paint a lot of this on the moist and damp stages of the paper. So the colours we're going to mix up, prepare our sort of palette really. We're going to use yellow ochre and lemon yellow for that yellow in the corner in essence. Then we're going to diffuse that into a green, which is going to be quite a bright green, and they're sort of thinking of Prussian blue, lemon yellow and a yellow ochre, which is mixed to give a sort of a nice sort of bright green, of which it'll be a complementary colour of which the beak and the bird will stand proud from. Then I'm going to apply that now onto the moist surface of the paper, making sure it really wants to be on the wet side, so that the colours diffuse and keep a nice smooth wash of green that we work our way through the paper. Now we have the background in place. It's still moist, and it's starting to dry, but I want to be conscious of trying to give the impact of those diffused grasses in the distance, the sort of the ones that are slightly out of focus, and then work my way into the bird and get the other grasses in and give a feeling of the background sort of emerging. So what I need now is two greys, two darks. One is a dark green, which is Prussian blue and burnt sienna. I need to make up a sort of a pool of that, and then I'm going to mix up a blue grey, which is going to be ultramarine, burnt umber, and alizarin crimson. I like the three primary colours in this grey, and it will give a sort of a bit of a three-dimensional feel to the grey as I apply it, and obviously it's going to be in various strengths. So I start working my way into the painting, drop that into the background. I'm going to try to concentrate firstly with the greeny grey, where the green, I'm going to put those distant grasses, which is just going to be a case of dropping the brush on and then just finding the tip and just using the tip to pull the stem of the brush towards me, so you give that feeling of diffused grasses in place. We're going to do that for a little bit. Alongside the background, I'm also going to try and put the position of the feet. They're just going to appear in a very diffused way with a subtle use of colour, and also using a little bit of Chinese white just to diffuse the water, provide a little bit of a milky wash. And I'm going to apply those using cadmium red for the feet, which I'm going to diffuse on the paper alongside the moisture and, as I say, the milky Chinese white washes, and that will hopefully make the feet emerge. Now, as we've sort of got those grasses in the foreground, I'm going to work to the rear of the puffin and concentrate on trying to give those diffused grasses in the distance as well. They're going to work our way in. Now I'm going to still with the green grey, and then I'm going to change to drop in the sort of blue grey, and I'm going to strengthen that up. I'm going to drop that in on the moist, on the diffuse, so that diffuses into the foreground. It creates a nice amount of dark, which will help to propel the bird, make it sort of stand out really. And obviously I don't want to concentrate, I don't want a lot of interest in the foreground. It's very much diffused, and I just wanted to give the impression of sort of grasses and also the bird wants to emerge from that darkness. And so I'm going to work in from there. I'm going to work up using this blue grey. I'm going to work into the back of the bird, put that back on the bird, try to sort of make sure when I start that I'm going to put some water onto the back of the bird to make sure we've got a sort of some moisture in the paper, with the intention of making sure that the greys go on to a moist surface and the colours will blend themselves. Watercolour is wonderful because it really does want to paint itself, and just give it that chance to blend itself, blend those darks. And as I gradually work, I work in it, make them slightly darker as I paint along. I'm continually working my way along this painting, and the breast of the bird is the sort of next area, and I'm going to let that emerge while the rest of the paper is still wet. I'm going to add some more moisture to the breast of the bird area, and then I'm going to drop in some cobalt blue and sort of burnt umber and a little bit of a yellow ochre, just on the moist, so you can just get that feeling of shadow and highlight, and that will hopefully just give that feeling of three-dimensional effect on the breast of the bird. Now that the picture's dry, we're going to work on the face, get the head, which is going to be the principal part of the bird. It's going to be so important to this painting that we get that as accurate as we possibly can. So we're going to consider a little bit of diffusion work to try and get the shape and the light on the puffin, but also we're going to put quite a lot of colour and detail work in now. Next, I'm going to tackle the top of the head, which is important that this is done on a moist surface again. So I'm going to wet the surface of the paper, mix that blue grey, which is essentially again that ultramarine blue, burnt umber and alizarin crimson, which I'm going to create a strong dark, which will encapsulate the top of the bird, and just towards where the head meets the beak, there's a little bit of a warm highlight there, which I'm just going to apply some water to ensure that I capture that highlight. And then I'm going to drop that colour in various strengths, and hopefully we'll give that sort of three-dimensional feel to the top of the head. I'm going to start with the beak and try to give that sort of strong colours. You've got some distinct ultramarine blue, and I'm going to use cadmium red for the actual redness of the beak, and then drop in some shadows around there on the moist, all again on the moist, and then lift off a little bit where there's some highlight on the edge of the beak, and also lift off where the some of the highlight on the blue as well, just to give that sort of feeling of light. We now move on to the face, which is important that I do a series of diffused washes on there. You're centering around cobalt blue with a little bit of warmth in parts and a little bit of coolness in parts as well. So I'm going to utilise burnt umber to make a sort of dark, and then I'm also going to use a little bit of yellow ochre to just give a bit of highlight, and I'm going to drop those onto the moist surface and just gently push those colours around, but let the diffusion happen, let those colours mix together, and hopefully by doing that we'll give that feeling of sort of light and shade on the face, and also create that three-dimensional feel. Now coming to this, probably one of the most crucial areas, which is the eye. And the eye really is all about sort of capturing that light in a dark space, but it's really about capturing that feeling of that brings it to life. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to put a little bit of red around the eye is built up with a little bit of a red around the eye, and then the actual centre of the eye is painted on a moist surface. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a little bit of water onto where the actual eyeball is, and then I'm going to make a very, very strong dark, really strong dark of sort of ultramarine burnt umber, and really then just drop that in onto the moist surface and just let it diffuse. But it's going to be such a strong dark that it will diffuse and just create that extra, it will just bring to life. So now we're sort of getting to the final bits really, which is the fish on the in the beak, and that is used mostly cobalt blue with a little bit of dark made up from ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, really. And what I've done is I've wet the fish but left some highlight on the actual fish scale, so you've got a little bit of highlight, but a lot of it is done on the diffused, and I've carefully made sure that you've got a feeling of that blueness that comes with these with the fish. And then I've just, while it's on the moist, I've just dropped some darks around them carefully to allow a little bit of extra highlight just where the eyes are, just so you give that feeling of heads to the fish. And then where the fish drop away from the other side of the beak, they're in shade, and I've just made a very strong dark just to sort of give them a feeling of shadow. And then after doing that, all I'm then do is I then move on to looking at the final touches, give it a little bit of a feel if I need to put a little bit of grass or a little bit of balance to any of it, and then we've got our final picture. Right, so there we are, the final painting. I've put a mount round it just to give it a little bit of, show it off a little bit more. I'm really quite pleased with it. I mean, obviously the colours are still blending, still mellowing, and there's that granulation that's starting to play, but all in all, I'm really quite pleased with the final picture. So hopefully you can see this is another way of being able to show off watercolour. And it's such a versatile medium. It's got so much to offer, and obviously we're going to follow these videos that I'm doing. We're going to cover a whole range of subjects. It's lovely to get all your comments that are coming through. That's really helpful. It's helpful for us to get a feel for what sort of interesting and what you find sort of where you'd like to take the watercolour. I want to show that we want to show you the whole gamut of watercolour that we do. There's a whole range, so obviously we're going to go back into landscapes. We'll do more some landscape, but it's obviously nice to do a little bit of wildlife like this one here. So if you like these videos, please remember to like and subscribe. That helps us get picked up by the algorithms and just enables us to share with a wider audience. And so until next time, I'm going to say put some colour in your life, enjoy your painting, and goodbye.